Okay, so first up, the people who are somehow in bed before your dinner is even digested. The 8 to 9 p.m. crowd. Yeah, these are your little kids, your farmers, your ultramarathon runners, and that one coworker who says, "I'm a morning person" with a little too much pride. And here's the wild thing. Only about 1.5% of American adults actually hit the pillow by 9 p.m. So, if you're doing this, you are basically a unicorn. But why is this bedtime actually kind of incredible? Here's the science. When you sleep this early, you're almost perfectly synced with what's called your circadian rhythm, your body's internal clock that's been baked into human DNA for literally hundreds of thousands of years. Before electricity existed, humans went to sleep roughly when it got dark. So the early bird isn't weird, they're just ancient. And the advantages stack up fast. These sleepers tend to get the most slow-wave deep sleep. That's the stuff that physically repairs your body, consolidates your memories, and regulates your immune system. Studies show early sleepers have lower rates of depression, lower BMI on average, and better reaction times in the morning. Famous early bird, Tim Cook, CEO of Apple, reportedly wakes up at 3:45 a.m., which means he's probably out cold by 8:30 p.m. The man runs one of the most valuable companies on Earth and goes to bed when most people are still watching Netflix previews. All right, moving to the 9 to 10 p.m. slot. This is the bedtime your parents told you to have. And honestly, they weren't wrong. This window hits the sweet spot for most adults. About 15% of Americans fall asleep somewhere in this range. It's not the most common, but it is what most sleep scientists would consider optimal for a standard 6 to 7 a.m. wake-up. Here's what's sneaky cool about this bedtime. If you fall asleep around 9:30 p.m., you'll naturally cycle through 4 to 5 full sleep cycles by morning, each one being about 90 minutes. That means you wake up at the end of a sleep cycle, not in the middle of one. That's literally the difference between waking up feeling like a human versus waking up feeling like you got hit by a bus. And here's a stat that might blow your mind. The National Sleep Foundation found that people who sleep between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. consistently score higher on cognitive tests than those sleeping the same number of hours but at later times. It's not just about quantity. Timing matters. Shout out to Oprah Winfrey. She's talked about aiming for a 10 p.m. bedtime with a serious wind-down routine. And look, she built a media empire. Probably not a coincidence. Now we're talking. The 10 to 11 p.m. window is the most common bedtime in America, with roughly 35% of adults landing here. This is the statistical average, the bedtime equivalent of being 5 feet 9 inches, or liking The Office. And you know what? There's real power in this zone. Sleep researchers call 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. the power hours of sleep. This is when your brain dumps its waste products through what's called the glymphatic system, like a dishwasher for your brain. And it runs most efficiently in the first half of the night. So if you're asleep by 10 or 11, you're catching that whole cleaning cycle. A wild study from the UK found that people who fell asleep between 10 and 11 p.m. had the lowest risk of heart disease compared to any other bedtime, even compared to earlier sleepers. The researchers think it comes down to how well this window aligns with natural light and dark cycles. One stat that should wake everybody up, 40% of Americans get less than 7 hours of sleep per night. But those in the 10 to 11 p.m. group who wake up around 6 to 7 a.m., they're among the most likely to actually hit that 7 to 8 hour target. So this group is kind of winning without even trying that hard. Okay, now, we're getting into territory most people recognize. The 11 p.m. to midnight crowd. This is probably the second most popular bedtime in the US. Somewhere around 25% of adults are falling asleep here. These are your social butterflies, you're just one more episode people, your evening gym goers. And honestly, there's a case for this schedule being surprisingly functional. Here's the hidden advantage. People who stay up slightly later tend to have higher evening cortisol clearance, meaning their stress hormones have more time to come down before sleep, which can actually mean better sleep quality in some individuals. Night owls also tend to score higher on creativity tests. There's a real correlation between staying up late and divergent thinking. Speaking of creative night owls, Charles Darwin did some of his best thinking late at night. Marcel Proust literally wrote from midnight to 3 a.m. And in modern times, Elon Musk has said his natural preference is to stay up until around midnight. The risk here? The later you push it, the more that 7 a.m. alarm starts eating into your sleep. Midnight bedtime plus a 6:30 a.m. wake up equals only 6.5 hours, and that deficit adds up fast over a work week. Straight up midnight, you watch the clock tick over. Maybe you're in college. Maybe you just finished your side hustle. Maybe you just lost 2 hours to TikTok and you're not proud of it. About 10% of American adults consistently fall asleep at or right after midnight, and this group is disproportionately young. The CDC found that adults aged 18 to 34 are the most likely to be sleeping after midnight regularly. Here's the interesting twist, though. Your chronotype, meaning your natural biological preference for sleep timing, is partly genetic. Scientists have found specific genes like PER3 and clock that literally determine whether you're wired to sleep early or late. So some midnight sleepers aren't being lazy. Their DNA is just running a different program. The hidden advantage of midnight sleepers: they often have the most social alignment. Staying up late means more time with people, more evening events, more spontaneity. And strong social connection is one of the biggest predictors of long-term mental health. So there's a real trade-off here that doesn't get talked about enough. Famous midnight creature, Winston Churchill. The man ran Britain through World War II on a midnight bedtime, a 1 a.m. whiskey, and a late morning start. Unconventional? Yes. Effective? Apparently. All right, now we're deep in it. 1 to 2 a.m. These are your bartenders, your chefs, your coders, your gamers mid-raid, your musicians after a show. And in America, about 5 to 6% of adults are regularly falling asleep here. This schedule is actually medically recognized. It's called Delayed Sleep Phase Syndrome, or DSPS, and it affects roughly 0.17% of the general population in a diagnosable form, but many more people have a milder version of it. Their melatonin just starts releasing later. Their body temperature drops later. Everything is just shifted. And here's what's genuinely wild. Studies show that if you let people with this chronotype sleep on their natural schedule, 2 a.m. to 10 a.m., say, their sleep quality, cognitive performance, and mood are completely normal. The problem isn't the timing, it's that the world is set up for morning people. The 9 to 5 is basically discrimination against night owls, and I'm only half joking. Famous 1 to 2 a.m. sleepers? Barack Obama was reportedly a midnight to 1 a.m. guy during his presidency, staying up to read briefings. Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones once said he genuinely didn't know what a morning felt like for years. Oh, we have arrived. 2 to 4 a.m., the hour when the whole world feels like it belongs only to you. Cab drivers, ER nurses, casino dealers, DJs, people writing novels that nobody's read yet. This is a small but mighty crew. Maybe 2 to 3% of Americans are consistently crashing here. And the advantages are weird and specific, but very real. For one, problem solving at night is genuinely different. Your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain that second-guesses everything and worries about what people think, is naturally a bit less active late at night. Some researchers believe this is why so many artists and writers feel most free after 2 a.m. The inner critic goes quiet. There's also a phenomenon called second wind. Between roughly 11 p.m. and 3 a.m., many people experience a natural boost in alertness driven by a secondary cortisol surge. Your body literally gives you a late-night bonus energy spike. Some people catch it and ride it. That's your 3 a.m. deep nighters. The downside? If these folks have to be up by 8 or 9 a.m., they're running on 5 hours or less. Long-term sleep deprivation at this level increases the risk of type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and significantly impairs memory consolidation. So, the creative freedom has a biological price tag. And finally, the wild card. The person who doesn't have a bedtime. Some nights it's 11, some nights it's 3. Last Tuesday it was 5 a.m. because they fell asleep on the couch during a documentary about penguins. This is a bigger group than you'd think. Studies suggest around 20% of Americans don't maintain a consistent sleep schedule, and this group includes new parents, shift workers, healthcare workers, freelancers, and people dealing with insomnia. Here's the brutal truth. Consistency is arguably more important than timing. Your body builds what's called sleep pressure and circadian drive, two biological forces that need a regular rhythm to work properly. When your bedtime bounces around every night, both systems get confused. Your sleep architecture breaks down. You spend less time in deep sleep and REM. A Harvard study found that irregular sleep schedules were linked to lower GPAs in college students, and that was independent of total sleep hours. It wasn't just less sleep causing problems, it was the inconsistency itself. But here's the redemption angle. Even irregular sleepers can hack their biology. Keeping your wake time consistent, even if your bedtime varies, is the single most powerful lever you can pull. Your wake time anchors your circadian clock. Everything else can adjust around it. So whether you're out at 9 p.m. or still going strong at 3 a.m., your sleep schedule is telling a story about your biology, your lifestyle, and your hidden advantages. Like, comment and subscribe for more like this, and go get some quality sleep.